Liar, a book by W.P. Thrift, read by name redacted, Chapter 5, It's a Boy. Larry was sitting at the computer in his apartment going through different websites looking for phone numbers. Most websites had live text chats with their support staff or an email address, but Larry was specifically looking for a number where he could call and speak to someone in person. After searching through 5 different fairly reputable money management firm websites without a single number he could call that would lead him to speaking to a live consultant, he found a number a lesser reputable site. It doesn't matter to him if it's a scam site or not, he just needed a human being. He found a chatbot that was eager to hear all about the millions he had to invest in the stock market. This let him confirm that his powers don't work if chatbots believed him. He found a phone number on one that led him through a series of press 1-2 automated messages before landing him on a secretary who was only there to direct his call. When he was unable to provide some kind of proof of income to her directly, she hung up on him, refusing to waste her boss's time by patching him through to anyone that could actually help him with his supposed stock portfolio. Larry had a tab open to his bank account, which he had to refresh every 30 minutes or it would log him out due to inactivity. It showed his current funds, a solid one, $879.23 in his account. With his new income, he'd easily have double that any given month, which would give him the comfort of knowing he could go a whole month or two unemployed if need be. He could even visit the ER in an emergency, but only if he didn't receive treatment or stay for more than a couple hours. This promotion he was looking forward to would provide so much breathing room for him in his life. Or at least, it would have if he didn't currently owe over $200,000 to his mom's insurance company, which was how much they paid out for her funeral expenses when she passed away. He had no idea that funerals could be so expensive, but apparently every last cent of it had been spent on the arrangements, so there was nothing to send back to them. He had to raise all of this money from scratch. As much as Larry never wanted to risk using his powers again, he was in such severe debt that it would destroy his life if he didn't do something about it. If he was unable to make regular payments, the insurance company would have him arrested for fraud. The very first plan Larry came up with was to use his powers to pay the entire thing off in a single lump sum. He would love to convince the company that he owed them no debt and just magically erase it, but his lies have to be believed for them to come true. And there was no way anyone at that company would ever believe there'd been a mistake and he simply owed them nothing. It would be far easier, Larry figured, to convince someone else out there in the world that he was rich. It would only take one person to believe him, and he'd become an actual millionaire. He could pay that debt off, quit his job, and then actually live any way that he wanted from here on out. What started as simply an idea to pay off his debt had transformed into the ultimate get-rich-quick scheme. And what truly scared Larry was that it could actually work. The 6th financial consultant website he found, the seedy-looking scam site, had a number he could call and talk directly to a representative of the company. He dialed it up, and when someone answered on the other end, he could hear someone chatting in the background, someone else hissing at that person to be quiet, and then at least one, but maybe two, other people coughing near the phone. Yes, this is Simon, and Simon. We're here to help you realize the future you've painted in your mind. So, who do I have the pleasure of speaking to? The guy on the line tried so hard to sound professional, but there was a grogginess to his voice and a deep raspiness that would have badly unsettled Larry had he not intended to scam this guy back. Larry glanced back at the website and couldn't help but notice the site's name was Simon, the second Simon spelled wrong, and also one fewer Simons than the person on the phone claimed there to be. Am I speaking to Simon? Larry asked. Who? Yes, I'm Simon. And you are? The Simon repeated his question. I'm calling to tell you that I just inherited $5 million from a long-lost uncle that I never met before, and I have that money already in my bank account right now. I'm calling to ask you how you could help double that money like your website says you can. Of course we can. Now I'll need to verify your funds, Simon said. Could you give me your bank account info right quick so that I can pull it up on my end? Don't worry, this call is entirely confidential. Larry could hear laughter in the background as the guy said confidential. Wow, they think I'm an idiot, Larry thought, then hit the tab to go to his bank account. The amount of money within it remained unchanged, $879.23. Damn, I guess I thought they were idiots too. Fair enough, Larry thought. I'm going to need you to believe me here, Larry said. Whoa, that's fine. I don't need to verify your account info just yet. Let's talk opportunities first. Simon said, then went into a well-rehearsed speech about what it means to be an investor and why Larry should trust him with all his money. Do you get what I'm saying, mister? Say, what was your name again? I didn't catch it. Larry stared at the unchanging amount of money in his bank account. I really, really need you to believe me here, Larry told him. I believe you. You're lying, Larry told him. You don't believe me at all. What makes you say that? Why don't you believe me? Just tell me what gave me away so I can fix it next time. Next time? Just what kind of scam are you trying to pull here? I don't get you. If you would just believe me, then I would have $5 million in the bank right now. If you do that for me, I'll straight up give you $1 million. And I could help turn that million into... No, I mean as a gift, as a thank you. I just need you to believe me. Look, pal, I don't believe anyone, Simon leveled with him. When I see cold, hard cash in my own hand, I still expect it to be counterfeit. When I see the numbers in black and white in my bank statement, I think someone's messing with me. I never trust anyone or anything, not even what I can see with my own eyes. So you're a dead end, Larry said. I actually appreciate your time. This was very helpful to me. Larry snapped his flip phone shut before the guy could say anything else. He needed another new number. He needed someone else he could talk to. It needed to not be a con man. It needed to be someone that didn't rip others off for a living. People that make a habit of lying also make a habit of not trusting. Of course, that didn't mean the opposite was true. If someone almost always told the truth, they didn't necessarily always expecting everyone to be truthful to them. He could think of loads of examples of this already. Teachers who do their best but to trust yet verify everything their students say. Police officers whose honesty with and distrust of others both would affect their very survival. Even doctors had to always be brutally honest with their patients while keeping in mind that most likely everyone is lying to them or else they could easily misdiagnose them. There were so many dead ends for Larry to consider here. So many kinds of people who'd naturally reject taking things told to them at face value. Perhaps any random Joe on the street wouldn't think he's lying if he told them he was rich, but would they care enough to believe it? There was a gulf of difference between not assuming someone's lying and actually taking to heart what they've said, after all. Larry went to dial up his sister, knowing she would trust him. He even knew her number by heart. It was one of 2 phone numbers he'd memorized in his life, the other being his mom's phone number. 3 numbers now, actually. He'd devoted Mike's number to memory after having to hunt it down the other day. It was still written on a notepad he kept next to his computer just in case, however. No, I can't call Kim. Since his mom's resurrection, he hadn't spoken to his sister. The idea of doing so scared him to death. What would her reaction be? Before leaving his mom's the other day, he asked her to give his sister a call, saying that she might be worried about her. He didn't say a word to his mom about her having been dead, treating it entirely like a normal visit. He'd meant to call her again that night, but hesitated, and then didn't make the call. It was too likely that since calling Kim, his mom had found out what had happened, and he didn't want to hear her asking about it. He had no idea what his mom or sister were thinking or knew about him right now, and he'd prefer to keep it that way for as long as possible. He'd rather dread what they might know, dread how they might feel, than actually find out for certain. He'd bite the bullet and deal with that someday, but he kind of wanted to deal with this whole insurance fraud thing first. Once this was well and truly behind him, he would be a bit more at ease about handling that other potential problem. A meow nearby caught his attention. Sherbert wandered into the living room and walked up next to the computer desk, putting itself under his hand, which dangled limply at his side, and then walking back and forth, administering pets to itself since Larry didn't feel like moving to do it personally. "Good afternoon, Sherbert," Larry muttered. "Are you hungry?" He glanced over toward the kitchen, but couldn't see the food bowl from here. "I'm at a loss, Sherbert. How do I convince people I'm rich? Does it count if cats believe me? Hey, Sherbert, I'm a millionaire. I have $1 million in my bank account right now." Sherbert purred merrily at his words. But when he used his free hand to glance back up at his bank account, it remained frozen at the same amount he always had. "Bad kitty. You don't believe me either. Well, I'll go fill your feed bowl, then go for a walk. Maybe if I cleared my head, I could think of my next move." Sherbert looked at him expectantly as he pulled his hand away and pushed his chair out a bit from the desk to get up. The cat followed a bit too close behind him, a habit its owner had become aware of enough to avoid accidentally stepping on a stray paw as he walked across the apartment to fill the food bowl. While the cat greedily nommed away at the freshly filled bowl, Larry left quietly out of his apartment. There was no fresh air on the sidewalk to help him clear his head. It was all car fumes, overfilled trash cans, and a richly spoiled scent of ammonia in the air that assaulted his nostrils close to where he lived. He pressed on straight towards the park, which sat halfway between his home and his office building. While the park didn't entirely escape the odors of the city, it came far closer to doing so than anywhere else within several miles of here. On the way to the park, Larry eyeballed several strangers, egging himself on mentally to just tell people at random he'd just won $1 million. If he shouted in a large crowd at the top of his lungs, surely one person would believe him, right? What if 2 people believed me, and one thought I had $1 million in the dot, and another thought I had $10 million? Which one would be right? Whoever believed the most? How can the depth of belief be truly measured like that, or would I have $11 million? Such curiosities ended up occupying his mind for most of the walk. The closest he came to actually speaking to anyone was when he paused at a crosswalk waiting for the white man on the sign to appear so he could cross the street. Several people gathered around him, and he went as far as opening his mouth to talk to them, but hesitated. He hesitated far too long. Then as the white man appeared on the sign and everyone started moving, he faked a yawn and stretched out, pretending to be tired, as though that's why his mouth had lingered open. Exhaustion flushed over him as he did so. He actually felt like he could fall asleep if he laid down right now. "Crap, are you serious?" Larry shouted internally. Someone noticed me yawning and believed I was actually tired. So nonverbal lies count too? Fighting sleepiness the rest of the way to the park, he mercifully began to feel more alert by the time his feet touched actual grass, and he began to walk over towards the pond to sit on the nearby benches that were placed along the long dirt trail that hikers and others walking for recreation like to use. Larry sat down on the bench, staring at the ground for a moment. This was not unlike when he'd come here last after work. In fact, he was here at roughly the same time as he'd come to rest here that day. No new ideas came to mind, but his brain was too foggy to even start to brainstorm up new plans of action, so he decided to just look around to see if staring at nature and the natural world would help clear his thoughts. Nada. Nothing. Trees and grass did very little for him. It's not that he disliked such things, it just didn't vibe with him. He really wanted nothing to do with it. He wondered if staying in his apartment would have been better after all. This walk provided a change in scenery, but nothing else. He looked behind him towards the pond, and saw a group of ducks near the edge of it. The colorful duck with the green head was a male mallard. He knew that offhand. He had no idea what species the other ducks were, and without a smartphone he couldn't look it up either. Thwack! Something struck his leg, and he gave a slight jerk as his head snapped back to face forward again. A young boy, maybe around 8 years old, had just ran up and struck his leg, leaning on him eerily, mouth opened and tongue out. Larry gently pushed the kid back with one hand, trying his best to use just his palm. He was assuming there was something wrong with this kid, but was also worried about how anyone walking by might view this scene. "Kid, get out of here, you're bothering me," Larry grumbled. "Hey, mister," the kid said. So he's not nonverbal. Given his expression, I assumed he would be, Larry thought. "Yeah, hi. Now, go find your parents or something." "Long time no see." "What? I've never seen you before." "You don't remember?" "Aw, I remember you. You had the nice shoes on before." He's not acting like a normal kid at all. What's wrong with his brain? No, don't ask. That's not being sensitive enough, Larry griped to himself. And then an idea struck him like lightning. Wait, all kids are naturally dumb as hell and naive to the core. "Hey, kid, want to know something cool?" Larry asked, and the kid nodded repeatedly, still leaning in way too close to him, making him very uncomfortable. "I just won $5 million in a sweepstakes. Isn't that something? I have that much money in my bank right now." "That sounds cool." "You believe me?" "Yeah, but mister?" "HM? What's a bank account?" "Oh, come on," Larry fumed. "Does it still count if they believe me but don't know what I'm talking about? Ugh." "What are you doing to my son?" came a harsh voice as a lady rushed up to him, snatching the kid away by his arm when she reached them. This was precisely what Larry had been fearing would happen. But having anticipated this, he took a deep breath, steeled his resolve, looked the lady square in the eyes, and said with pure panic in his voice, It's not what it looks like. The brat rushed me and wouldn't back off. Brat is he? Well, why were you talking to him? Larry stumbled over his words. It's just that he reminds me so much of my own son is all. You know? She took a step back, jaw agape, then smiled and laughed. Oh, I get it now. Look, I have to apologize too, little Buster and I here. We always go for walks in the park this time of day, and this little rascal always gets away from me, she said. That voice. Wait, are you Teresa? Larry asked. Yes. Have we met? She asked him. Yeah, the other day you were here walking your dog. What was his name again? Dog? I've never owned a dog, Teresa said. Weird, Larry thought. Is this a different Teresa? She looks so much like the other one, and the kid, Buster? Oh no, what have I done? I just told her I had a son. Realizing his words to her, he tried to speak, but his voice was dry, hoarse. He forced himself to swallow, and it went down harsh and scratchy. Teresa, wait, what I said about my son earlier, you should know I'm divorced, and the son stays with his mom. I never see either of them anymore. They're both totally out of my life. They want nothing to do with me. We're completely estranged, and that's all there is to it. Okay? Teresa gave him a weird look. She suddenly didn't trust him. Larry felt the shift in tone from her body expressions as she stood more upright, held Buster a bit closer to her, and her smile faded. I think I should head on now. Come, Buster, stay closer to Mommy now, you hear? She said, pulling the kid with her as she went on her way. Since Larry wasn't trying to hit on her this time like he was last time, he didn't bother to get up and follow her again. There was no telling what made her start distrusting him again, what made her suddenly feel uncomfortable around him, but he wasn't going to let himself worry about that. He suddenly just wanted to get home and make sure he didn't suddenly have a family waiting for him there. That's ridiculous, though, Larry thought. A whole life can't just be spawned into reality for me out of the blue like that. I mean, a cat is one thing, but entire human beings? Besides, I explained it to the lady very well. I have no family in my life. So that's all there is to this, right? She can't believe one part of the lie but not the other. What would that even look like? Larry arrived back home after a long, worrying walk. Unlocking the front door, he opened it to see precisely what he'd been dreading. Standing in the identical spot to where Sherbert had stood before, now stood a pale boy with a bowl haircut, roughly 10 years old.